of language learning and the difference between knowing your language and remembering it. So, levels of learning. Of course, you know, we have the beginner, intermediate, advanced levels of language learning, knowledge, usage, all of that. But there is a very important difference between being able to remember your language and knowing it so well that you can use it without having to take time to recall words, vocabulary, and the aspects of that language that you need. So within knowing a language, it's essentially that, being able to use it automatically, fluency, right? And remembering your language is a bit different. This is more common in a foreign language, although even in your native language you might stop to think like, what is that word? And that's completely normal. Or you might question yourself in your native language as well. We are still learning our native languages as well, so remembering is going to happen in your native language too, especially if you're going into like new vocabulary, a specific field and jargon. You're in the medical field, you're in psychology, you're in art, you're in history, you're in anything, and it has a specific vocabulary especially, you'll have to remember rather than just produce and speak fluidly and fluently, which is when we know a language. And remembering, as it relates to a foreign language, is essentially the process of constructing the language in your mind and then speaking that language. So with my Spanish, for example, it for the most part comes pretty fluidly and naturally, but there are times when I have to think about, okay, how do I say this in this tense using this verb, or what is the vocabulary word that I need, or sometimes I have to do a workaround to explain what I mean using different words, and that is completely okay, but that is a level as well. So this is the integration in between knowing and remembering, and also your levels. And at every level, beginner, intermediate, advanced, there is going to be an element of remembering and knowing. It is going to shift as you go through those levels. At the beginner stage, it's very likely going to be more remembering and just, okay, how do I say this? Say it. Remembering, okay, what was that? And then to say it and to form those structures. But there's that element of fluency, of knowing, which is just using what you already have and not worrying so much about, okay, how do I use this tense? How do I use this specific word? How do I recall this? And that shifts away as you go into those higher levels, intermediate, advanced, but you have them both at every level. It's just that how they're used will change. So for the most part, beginners have more remembering than they do knowing, and they are just remembering, studying, flashcards, drilling, like a lot of studying at the beginning stages. That is the way that most foreign language learners learn. And then at the intermediate level, you have a mix, a very nice mix of the two, where you are beginning to integrate more of that knowing, more of what you have learned, and putting that into practice. And that's a shift over to that knowing, but still focusing on remembering, right? And then also the knowing. So the sort of the balance of application and studying. It is that balance of application and studying. And it is shifting more into the application, more into that knowing. Whereas the advanced level here, it is very much practice, speak, use the language, and that is that knowing. That is where that comes in, and then integrated into that is the remembering and the studying, adding new elements, going back and relearning elements, vocabulary, grammar that you maybe were exposed to, learned a little bit, but didn't really learn them all that well. We have to go back and relearn a lot of those concepts because we have to be exposed to them over and over and over and over again to really, really get them down, and in a variety of contexts, and sometimes just going back and reviewing, even if it's the same context, to review it, because our minds just don't retain everything, and we have to practice. practice. But that's a shift there. At the advanced level, primarily usage and knowing, and then adding in those elements of remembering to really fine-tune and improve what we're able to do in our language. So that is the different levels of language learning and how we differentiate between knowing and remembering, and how that applies to language learning. Alright, I'll see you guys back here soon for another video. Bye guys!